We'll be having this panel discussion in which the panelist will be Mr. Shah, who is founder of B-Beta Fantasy Sports Platform. We'll have CA Shrijay Sheth, founder of LegalWiz.in, and we'll have Mr. Vikas Mundhra ji, who will be joining us in few minutes. He is founder of Magenta BI. Vikas Mundhra sir is there. He's founder of Magenta BI, and Shrijay Sheth will be joining us in few minutes. So I request the panelists to please come on the dais, and I request CA Hiral Gajera, who is coordinator for the session, to please escort the panelists on the dais.
Good noon to everyone. We are starting with the third session for the today. Panel discussion on tech startups. As the topic suggests, we have today very dynamic and enthusiastic 3 tech entrepreneurs with us. To start with, Mr. Shah is a sports enthusiastic and a driven entrepreneur. He is founder of B-Beta, a vibrant and a diverse platform where users can connect, share engaging sports experiences, and have a friendly competition. We welcome you, sir. Second panelist for the discussion today is CA Vikas Mundhra ji. He is a chartered accountant by qualification, businessman by experience, and an entrepreneur by choice. He is founder of Magenta, a business intelligence platform which provides actionable insights by integrating with Tally, SAP, and many more softwares. Magenta now has customers from across India, covering more than 15 industries. So, glad to welcome you, sir. With this, I request Abhinav ji, moderator for the topic, to take the session further. I request Abhinav ji to felicitate the panelists with the momentum.
So before starting this panel discussion, the motive behind why we have invited the panelists in Meet Bhai and Vikas sir is that they are the real, I think, what they are really facing in their real-time businesses, being entrepreneur, what they have faced, what challenges they are facing, and what they are foreseeing in times to come with respect to technology, and as they are the founders of tech startups. So when we start this panel discussion, I would like both of you to please share that something about your startup. What was the thinking behind it? What was the root cause or the soul behind your business? So we start with you, Meet Bhai.
Hi guys. So firstly, really excited to be here, and thank you guys for inviting me as well. So basically what we are doing with Beta is we are trying to revolutionize the way that fans experience sports in India. And we have seen as a country, sports is like a religion to us. And that's why we have seen immense growth of a lot of platforms in India. But we identified a few gaps where we understood that it's not really about money as such, where they don't want to earn money, but there were no real options out there. And that's why we came up with this idea of free-to-play app where users with all walks of the country can come and play without spending any real money, but still win real rewards. So the entire idea is that we want to create a community-driven platform and a place where people can just come and enjoy and challenge each other in these friendly competitions. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're building.
So Vikas sir, if you could just take the talk ahead.
हेलो हैप्पी आफ्टरनून तो थोड़ा लंच के बाद सेशन जो है इट्स स्लाइटली स्लीपी बट एनीवे विल ट्राई टू मेक इट एक्साइटिंग सो हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू आर वर्किंग समवेयर और just to have an idea about the audience before introducing myself, how many of you are practicing? Let me okay, most of you are practicing. Great. How many of you are using technology in terms of, let me ask the latest one, how many of you are have used ChatGPT? Okay, how many of you are using ChatGPT daily? Okay, very few. Got the idea. So, myself, Vikas Mundhra, in 2001, after completing my CA, I was keen on joining business. I joined hand with the Eyeball brand. I was part of the core team there as a working partner. For 17 years, I was handling the distribution business. And then during this journey, we were using SAP and spent crores of rupees on SAP, and we were making the reports on Excel sheets. And it was a struggle. So we realized that even a 1,000 crore organization is not using a BI software. And then pan India, we have seen customers using mostly Tally and then Busy or maybe other accounting ERPs, but there was no insights available to them. So what we thought, then we realized that all the BIs which are made for international market or large enterprise are do-it-yourself kind of product. And in India, do-it-yourself kind of product nahi chalta hai. So you need a ready solution. So couple of unique points in our startup is, one is we have made the ready integration with all the ERPs, including Tally, SAP, Busy, 15 plus ERPs. And all the customized fields can be picked up. So our target segment is 50 to 500 crore SMEs. That is our target segment. And second important thing we did is we gave them the ready metrics to measure the business. So there are ready dashboards which can be customized by the industry, by the business owner or the users. So the ready solutions help them to immediately adopt the solution. That is the second advantage. And now, fortunately, we have customers across India, and now we are 25 people team, and looking forward to grow. Not only in India, we have few customers surprisingly, from Pakistan and Dubai also. So now we'll go international over the period of time, but as of now, majorly focusing on India. So that's a brief background of it. Yeah, thank you.
Sir, congratulations on that part, and we welcome Mr.Shrijay, Sheth, founder of LegalWiz.in. Sir, we welcome you to the conference. And sir, I just asked a question about to just share a few things about the thought process with which you started your startup, and you are here. So if you could just add upon.
Absolutely. Thank you, first of all, for having me here. My name is Shrijay, and I run a company called LegalWiz.in. Primarily what we do is we try to, make it easier or make it rather simple, affordable, transparent way for procuring professional services. Right, as we speak, we are probably about 7,000 clients strong across India. Largely small businesses and startups is where our focus is, where people are more inclined towards procuring services online. The rationale was very simple to sort of start this venture. Again, I have a very deep background in legal tech. So before I started LegalWiz in India, I worked with a legal giant, or legal tech giant called LegalZoom for about 5 years back in the US. The problem statement there was a lot more different, which was more about the pricing and the lawyers being very inaccessible. India did not have a lot of, or so much of the pricing issue, but definitely first generation entrepreneurs did struggle in finding right kind of professionals, right? And a lot of times it is a perceptional issue, right? Is when people find it or perceive it difficult or complex to reach out for professional help. So I think that is the major problem that we wanted to solve, is to make such services very affordable, at the same time make them more accessible. And internet, getting momentum and Thankfully, the government digitizing a lot of different aspects of how the compliance matters are handled in India. It is becoming easier to use internet as a very powerful medium to solve such problems. So that is what, in our very humble efforts, that is what we try and do, and bring a change, hopefully, in how people perceive these services and their procurement, and make it more compliant friendly or compliance friendly environment all across. So thank you so much again for having me over here.
Yes, our pleasure. Listening to the basic profile, what we perceive is that you three are completely from different thought process or different profile. So it would be a nice talk going ahead. But before that, I would request CA Hiral to please introduce Mr. Shrijay Sheth, and we would welcome him with a momento then. Just 30 seconds break for that.
We have Mr. Shrijay Sheth, an entrepreneur with more than 15 years of formative and diverse experience base across varied industries. He currently leads, he said that a legal tech venture, legalwiz.in, that has empowered more than 7,000 small businesses to stay compliant with the law. And he also leads Hire for Hire Consulting, an agency boutique which helps client brands to build sustainable e-commerce businesses. So we welcome you, sir. I request Abhinavji to present him with the memento.
So the next question, which I'm just floating before three of you, anyone can just answer upon it. When we talk about from the business's perspective or from a chartered accountant, there are numerous processes or what I would say, the stereotype businesses going on. And someday, one day, their thought comes that अगर ऐसी technology होती तो शायद हम cost बचा सकते थे, हम समय बचा सकते थे, हम business automate कर सकते थे. So what we call it is that disruptive technologies, to be precise. So could you share the startup challenges that traditional business faces when you have adopted some disruptive technology which is a creative side? So anyone, sir?
So how many of you feel, again a question, how many of you feel that the AI will replace the job of educated people like us? How many of you feel? Okay. Okay.
To some extent.
To some extent. So I believe that any technology will empower the people. I don't think so there will be a replacement to the human element, because you always need a push. So as far as the CA services are concerned, there are a lot of things where the automation is possible. But then if we look from other perspective, it is more like with 5 people or 15 people, with the technology, help of the technology, we can serve not 100 clients, maybe 500 clients. So that's the way of looking at it. If we look the technology from that perspective, it does not become disruptive. It becomes a very welcome kind of thing. Yes, let us adopt this and empower and do our work more efficiently and try to serve larger customers. So this is one way of looking at it. So I feel business models, yes, it is always an evolving thing. It is going to change, but there are not going to be sudden changes. So what is important is how do we adopt every element where the efficiency, because what is growth? Ultimately, the growth is doing the more stuff in less time in a more efficient way, and technology help us to do that. So how do we adopt technology in different aspects of our services or business? If we keep on doing that, if we focus ourselves on the customers, I don't see this as a challenge. I feel this is an opportunity. So that's all.
I think I would definitely second what Vikas told, but also at the same time, I think with the CA fraternity and profession, I do feel that there are, so how the technology kind of comes in play is there are largely what I've seen through at least my experience, and I may be wrong with that, is there are many processes which are very standardized. And then there are many things in a CA's life which takes a lot of intellect, right? And how the technology is going to come and invade that space is anything which is a no-brainer or procedural or filing sort of things, or to an extent that, the drafting things and stuff, um, that will have a major impact um, on how much of work that is there in the market and how much of that can be taken care of by a generative AI or any sort of machine learning per se. For anything that requires an actual intellect, and which has a human, sense involved. So I was talking to my lawyer friend, and very recently there was an AI bot who cleared the bar exam and became the first lawyer and also fought a case. Right? What is different between a machine and when you argue a case, is there is also a lot of human touch which is involved, right? And when you are representing, when you are arguing a particular case, more than just the facts of the case, your repo, the way you present the facts and figures, and how those little aspects deviate the judgment, which is very important, which is always here to stay, because nothing in life is black and white. But for the most redundant work is going to go away from the industry. I'll give you a good example is 12 years back when or rather 12 years back, I believe, we filed for the first S1 for a NASDAQ IPO for LegalZoom. And at that point in time, we do claim about 1 out of 4 new company incorporations that happened in the California state, and 1 out of roughly around 8 in the entire US was done by a portal, not done by a human, right? And just one portal, and there are many. That experience is being replicated in India, and I'll give you a context to that. How is LegalViz's share in the market was roughly around, a quarter a percent, at the max 0.3%. So safe to say that every 1 out of 300 new companies that get incorporated in India happens through the office. When COVID came around, without us doing any effort, that share increased to about 1.2%. That was a fourfold, higher share. And unfortunately, that was not because of uh, anything that we did right. It was rather the limitation that was imposed by the Almighty, where the profession could not handle the same kind of activity when there were no physical meetings available, right? And that is where I think, all of us as a fraternity need to understand that the invasion of technology is inevitable, right? What if there are practice management softwares which can truly bring the practices on cloud? The hearings for a lot of different things are now, faceless, and how that experience gets replicated even within the offices, and how the technology comes to rescue rather than as a danger to the profession. I think that would be very interesting to see. Is a lot of progressive people already are making that work in their favor, and that is a rule of nature, right? Is the the bigger and stronger are always going to get away the largest market share. And so I would probably think this is the time for everyone to rather not think limited by the technology, but be more open to embrace the technology that is invading this very beautiful and very age-old profession that has remained here for years together. If we think about it, it is not a very recent thing. I mean, our kingdoms also had advisors, and technically they were chartered accountants, right? not just the degree, but by profession. That was the function of the advisor. So it is a very ancient and beautiful, industry which now is, kind of being taken up by this technology storm. And I think adoption is going to be the key, rather than being, feeling limited about it. And
So-
that would be pretty awesome.
So just taking your talk forward, before Meetbhai you add on, making this conversation a bit more interesting. What happens is you talked about human touch and presentation skills and everything, but एक कहावत कहते हैं हिंदी में कि गुरु जो है जब शिष्य को सारी शिक्षाएं दे देता है तो उसके बाद एक कुंजी अपने पास रखता है. So these AIs, text and everything, they are our shishya. So what is that one key which we should keep in our pocket so that they don't rule us? At last we are the rulers. So what you all think when you design these tech startups? So if you could add upon on that. So
I
what's
guess, the problem, I won't say it's a problem, but AI is a tech, right? AI and ML, it's something that it learns on its own. So it honestly depends on how we are able as a society or like a government institution can sort of regulate it before it becomes very big, which we should have done with social media, but it didn't happen. So just adding to his point as well.
you can use this mic. This is working very fine. Yeah.
So just adding to his point, right? It's not about how tech is evolving, but how we are adopting, right? And the best way to predict future is to actually go and read about history. When industrial revolution came in, right? Everyone protested कि आप machinery लगा दोगे तो jobs चली जाएगी and it's gonna be a huge problem. But people eventually learned how to use these machineries and get work done. And I guess AI is also going to be the same thing, that the pace at which the technology is changing. Earlier, it used to be like a disruptive tech comes probably every century, but now it's like every 10 years there's something coming in. And I guess that's where you have to constantly keep on adopting to these newer tech. And I guess that's how you stay in power as well.
So very nicely answered. We move on to the next question. When we talk about tech startups, they have huge, or I should say high growth potential, because they find some USPs or some problem points in the business or service line, and they give a solution to that point. So how could you find your USP in your businesses, and how we should find USPs in our business or in our client's business in times to come? So, sir, Vikas sir.
One thing to your previous question, the first one, as वो जो एक मंत्र रहता है, I think that mantra is, are we in touch with our customers? So Steve Jobs, I remember saying him that we work backward. We understand the requirement of the customer and then use the technology. So instead of using the technology and then identifying the customers will be a wrong way and thinking about it. But if we constantly keep in touch with our customers, their pain point, understand them objectively, and keep on giving the solutions upon that, I don't think so there is, because then automatically the focus remains the customer. So that is...
Yes, surely this is a thought-provoking sentence from you.
So that is one thing. And regarding the question which you said, just the USP, okay. Yeah. So obviously there has to be some moat in a startup world. It is said that what is the moat differentiator where the competitor will not be able to compete, or what is the USP? So in our case, domain experience, I feel is one USP, because it's been 20 years. I was dealing with the SMEs. I'm still dealing with the SMEs, and that kind of understanding of the businesses, the passion, that is perhaps the major USP. There are technical USPs like the ready integrations, the ready matrix and all that. But everything can be replicated as far as the technology is concerned. What cannot be replicated is the passion. I'm competing sometimes with the world's biggest company. Microsoft is our competitor. So, but we don't worry about it, because Microsoft के पास तो 100 चीजें हैं करने के लिए, मेरे पास तो एक ही है, और मैं तो 24 घंटे दे रहा हूँ. So why should I worry about it? So that is how I look upon the USPs.
I think creating the USPs is very, very important. And I can just explain how we found our USPs. So when we thought about seeking a professional help, whether that is a chartered accountant, lawyer, company secretary, tax practitioners, the four major things that that came to our mind, and after a lot of brainstorming within the team, what do we want to solve for? So I think the USP should be an outcome of your problem statement, right? 7 years back when we started, we were ideally trying to solve for 4 different problems, and that is what became part of our mission statement, which is to make it simple, affordable, transparent, and accessible. Right? A lot of people had a perception that government processes or obtaining licenses or staying compliant was not a simple process, and that is why a lot of small businesses chose to be non-compliant and eventually get into a complication of or bear the costing of being non-compliant. The second thing was a lot of times the match between a great professional and an affordable professional, it was hard to find that for people. It was very easy for people who already knew professionals. For example, I came back to India. My father runs, an offset printing press, which is running for, since independence, last 80 years. It was very easy for me to go to the same professional and seek for help. But that was not the case for a lot of my other startup fraternity friends who are first generation entrepreneurs. Right? So then we thought that we would solve for this issue where it is simple to find a solution. It is affordable, obviously, because startups was our centric market and we wanted to make our services affordable. How did we do that? Is we aim for the scale, right? And so when you are running standard processes, you are doing the same processes over and over again, hundreds of times every month, you can bring down the costing dramatically. And that costing advantage was passed on to the clients, right? So it is not a very typical startup model where we burn cash to acquire clients. It was genuinely the savings that we could bring from the economies of scale, and that was passed on to the clients, right? So we make it simple, we make it affordable. The third thing is a mindset, right? Which is about complexity and transparency. So a lot of people perceived that these professions weren't transparent. And it is very unfortunate that it is that way, right? So we wanted to change that mindset. We said that, okay, we are going to put it out there that this is what the process is, these are the documents that are required, and this is the timeline, and if you get everything in this timeline, this is the money that you pay. Now that stays constant for all the clients. So there are startups who can barely afford 2,000 rupee fee for filing a trademark. And then there are companies which are multi-million and if not billion-dollar organizations who have gotten trademarks from us, and they've also paid 2,000 rupees for that, right? So keep it extremely transparent. And the fourth thing was accessibility. If you don't know somebody who is a great professional, you should find this platform to be a trustworthy platform to find one, right? So these were the 4 problems that we thought that if we would solve for these problems, there are thousands of first generation entrepreneurs who would want to start their entrepreneurial journey and who do not have enough surrounding or the background to find right set of professionals will trust us. And eventually that happened in some or the other cases, right? So I think that was our way of finding our USPs, which genuinely came from the problem statement. We thought this is the problem. Whether it is a perceived problem or it is a persistent problem is a different question, but it is a problem that is out there. And then how do we solve for that? So I think that was our way to find our USPs, but every business should have their own USPs is what I strongly believe, because that is going to differentiate you from a very cutthroat competitive market. If everybody does the very similar thing and it is a homogeneous product all the way, then there is no price differentiation, there is no arbitration advantage, there is no loyalty of the customer, there is no retainership. And if that is not there, there is no growth. So how do we create that over and over again is by understanding what is our problem statement, stay to the roots, and make sure everything that we do in any of the departments within the company at least tries to solve one small bit of these 4 problems, which is simplicity, affordability, transparency, accessibility. And keep doing that, refine that more and more, and I think hopefully we'll get
Actually,
there
these
someday.
4 broad concepts can be applied to any business, and if these 4 are applied to any business, success is, I think it's granted or sure to come.
I would wish for the success.
Yeah, because these 4 are major pillars to the success, sure. So, Meet bhai, if you could add upon the...
The way I look at it as like India as a country is a very low trust society, right? And that's why we see like a few brands. जैसे टाटा है तो चाय भी बेचती है, गाड़ी भी बेचती है. Everyone buys it. And that's the same with Bollywood. 10-15 directors, actors, उनकी movies ज़्यादा चलती है. So that's why I feel like in a country like India, you have to give them enough value to then sort of come over to your platform. And the way we did that was we saw that, okay, what do Indians love when they watch sports? And we got a list of few things that, okay, they love cricket. And that's why we have like a umpire, a commentator in every household while a match is going on. So they love to share their opinions. That was the first thesis. The second thing was that we as consumers are one of the most pampered consumers by any brands, like in terms of cashbacks, in terms of rewards, in terms of all those things. Indians always got more things because they were pampered that way by these companies. So that was the second observation. And the third was that the way sports engagement has changed over the last few years, it required a lot of innovation in terms of while you're watching the game. And keeping all these 3 or 4 things in mind, we developed a platform where we let users share their opinions on the match they're watching. We let them predict because we like to know that if we are right or wrong. So that's why predictions help in that way. And third is we reward them for the time they spend on the app through our tokens, which they can redeem for prizes. So I guess it's a culmination of all these 3-4 things that we're doing on the platform to then give them enough value to use it.
Very nicely answered. I would just get back to Vikas sir's that contention of Steve Jobs. Customer feedback or customer usage, his psychology has to be read and backward integration has to be done. So tech startup success generally it is dependent upon how well you read the customer's mind and how you deliver them to the best of your abilities and the resources available with you. So sir, how do you strategize or plan to study and act upon the feedback received from the customers or the market, reading their minds? So sir.
So okay. So initially we realized that we are getting a lot of positive feedback. So one thing is थोड़े टाइम के बाद ऐसा लगा शायद डायबिटीज हो जाएगी इतने पॉजिटिव बट अल्टीमेटली पैसा तो नहीं दे रहे हैं सो then over the period of time one thing which we realized that any positive feedback or any negative feedback in that sense both are not going to help us. So what is important is are we understanding the pain points of the customers objectively? So we should not ask the customers the solution, what solution do you need? Customers को पूछते तो शायद वो BlackBerry phone था उसमें keyboard और बड़ा चाहिए, that would have been the solution. But we should understand the pain point of the customers and then try to brainstorm that and give the solutions whether it is the right solution or not. So to give an example of ERPs, आप लोगों ने इतने ERPs देखे होंगे, Tally है, we have seen hundreds of ERPs. So मैं जिस भी ERP में देखता हूँ उसमें जब when the owner gives the demo of the ERP, they show us कि there are 400 reports and then 400 reports क्योंकि बोले हमारे पास सब कुछ है. But then if you go to the customers again, they say we are confused, हम कौन सी report कब use करें? So every feedback of the customer, if you try to give the solution, that would not be the right approach. To to think about it and then to give the solution in a holistic way, I feel is a better approach. In our case, what we did is we were giving pretty static kind of dashboard initially, and then based on the customers' feedbacks and the multiple industries, there was a lot of dynamism built in the dashboard so that it automatically customizes based on the ERP data. So that is the learning which we had during our journey.
Sorry, I forgot the question.
Actually, it was with respect to how we backward integrate to the customer's mind, reading their feedbacks or their needs, their psychology, and how we transform our business or strategize based upon that. What we want to deliver.
Yeah, so there are two things to that. One is obviously we go by the data very strongly, and my background in data analytics for the longest period of time kind of makes me a little more savvy for that. So I think one of the major metrics that we track at the organization is the Net Promoter Score, which is a very standard metric to track in any customer service or CX experience. We do have a very sophisticated model which also spits out the kind of reviews and does a natural language processing over there to essentially identify if it is a great review, why it is a great review, and if it is not a great review, then why it is not a great review. And then we try to double down on what we are doing well and try to at least cut down on what we are not doing well, right? So that is first thing first is make it simple, affordable, transparent, accessible. If there is any issue in that, that catches our eye the first, and we try to fix that. The second thing is when you are trying to run or operate a business at scale, there is always an 80-20 rule. Your 80% of the revenues will come from 20% of your services. Your 80% of the problems will have a 20% of the solutions. And vice versa, your rest 20% of the problems will require 80% of the effort to be fixed, right? So rather than trying to find out a solution for everyone, if you would want to scale, then standardize the things and be very happy about this is the market that I would want to serve, right? To put that in context, when we got our first order for a trademark from somebody who is a very big name in the publishing industry across India, I was extremely excited. But at the same time, the owners called us that you will have to come to the office and meet us. I'm going to charge 2,000 rupees, which will barely, pay for the petrol that I spend. Nonetheless, I wanted to build a relationship, right? And I went there. Great, I have a connection. I'm very happy that I made this big client, and that repeated 2, 3, 4 times. Then we realized that this is not the market, right? The Adanis and Ambanis of the world will have so many professionals at their disposal that they are not going to look at a random e-commerce website which is selling professional services online, right? Who is our target market? And so we try to kind of define our target market. And we said that, okay, the whole world needs services of a professional. But then not everybody is going to need that online. And so now you have a niche of that. Then we say that, okay, out of these kind of people who would want to do things in, kala pila paisa, they are probably not going to come online. So people who only do need business are going to consider us. And so we again kind of shrink our target market, right? Then we say that somebody who is extremely remote and needs a Gumasadara certificate in some remote village of Maharashtra, I don't have an affiliation over there, right? And so I still kind of shrink my target market to be even more precise. So now when you started with the whole world, now you are kind of left with, a very specific target market, and you only target those markets with the best foot forward, right? So you say that if there is a digital marketing agency, if there is a tech company who would appreciate having their accounts on cloud, we are the go-to person. If you are somebody who is selling, who are in the clothing market, in new cloth market, probably that's not a great fit for legal. I don't say that is not a client or a valued client. There could be, but that's not the market that we will run after, right? So I think that is what solves for that problem is understanding our limitations. And somebody wise told me, which had stayed with me, is if Rahul Dravid were to bat like Sehwag, he would always be caught at the boundaries, right? And so he had his play, which was within his limitations. He knew that he cannot hit the balls out of the ballpark every other delivery, right? So if that's your limitation, play with that limitation and be best at that limitation. So I think that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, we have to understand what are limitations and the strength, so that weaknesses can be transformed into the strength. So, Meet bhai, if you could add upon this.
Sure, I think so. As he correctly said, like, if you try to do everything, you'll end up wasting a lot of time, money, effort. And I guess as we start out, we're so excited that we want to do everything. Like, I'll offer this, I'll offer that, I'll become a go-to platform for a specific thing. And what you have to realize is that all of those things, they require a specific set of talent and also a lot of other things. So it's very important to understand what your core users want. And for us, it's a bit easier because the target audience that we have is closer to my age. So I eventually decide, okay, if I like this, probably a lot of other people will. So I guess that makes it a bit easier for me. And then, like, 3-4 things we again saw that what motivates the user today, like, so the social status of a user is very important on the kind of platforms they are on, and always proving that they are right in their favorite game is important. So we added those elements within the app to make it useful for them. And I guess that's how we look at problems, like, what will our user want, what motivates them the most, and that's how we go about it.
Meet bhai, you just talked about the talent. In the next question, I would request that you start off because every time Vikas bhai is starting, so this time you. So you talked about talent. So tech startups, a general problem was seen all over the world, globally, and in India as well, about retaining or attracting the new talents. Because the tech professionals tend to change the jobs or very, very easily. And in Bangalore, which is our tech city, or Hyderabad, it is usually seen how frequently they jump over their jobs and they just look for money. So how difficult or challenging you are finding to attract new talents or retain them? Because after attracting at a huge cost and retaining them, you also give them platform to learn, to apply their skills and everything. So how much challenging is that in current times?
It's very challenging, and I'd say that not only tech talent, but in general, the entire team, right? Marketing, operations, everything needs to be run by really talented people, really motivated people actually. Because skill set nahi hai, so they'll learn if they're motivated. But if they're not motivated, then they won't. So I guess that's the most difficult part, because we don't have endless resources, right? Like in terms of whatever the pay is, we'll be able to afford it. So we have to convince them to come on a lower pay if they are at a higher pay, and then still keep them motivated and उनसे और काम करवाना है, because उधर तो शायद से they were working 9 to 5, 9 to 6. Either they are like, no, it's not going to work that way. You're going to have to work on Saturdays. You have to work more hours. You're going to get lesser than what you were making. But impact creation है. अगर अच्छा हो गया, तो then you'll be able to create more impact. So I guess as a founder, you're constantly selling, right? You're selling to, let's say, your investors, you're selling to your team, you're selling to your customers. So it's the part of that process where you have to constantly be very, very, very picky about what kind of people comes on board initially, because I really believe that even one wrong fit comes into your company, they can destroy it. So I guess you have to be very smart about it.
Yeah, It can be meant that a talent which we can make them feel that they are meaningful to us and they are producing something meaningful for the society that motivates them to the larger extent. So, Shrijay sir, if you could add upon that.
Yeah, I think these days are very different than what it was 10, 15, 20 years back. People just don't work for money, they do work for recognition. They do work for purpose. The young generation has tremendous amount of clarity about what they would want to do in life. The ones who are good, and then there is a big lot which is the other way. But I think ideally we are speaking about.
You are
talking
blessed
about
with a
people-
nice team, so
people
that's
who
what
are
we anticipate.
who are the good ones, right? They are extremely driven. When I was studying in college days, I had no clarity. I wasn't very sure that I want to pursue this as a career or not. Today you meet people from 7th, 8th, 9th grade and they are participating in external competitions. They have a purpose. They are driven, right? One thing which stays common across the world, what I've seen and probably worked with companies in at least 4 or 5 different continents now, is talent needs a transition. And if it is not upwards, it is outwards. You cannot stop that. So when you would want to hire right talent, you have to compensate right. And that's not just monetary, that is also the environment, the empowerment, and obviously money is the biggest portion of that. And we cannot deny that, right? If there is talent, if the talent does not move up within your organization, they will very quickly find a way to move out. And you can't stop that. And you shouldn't ideally, right? Because if you do, then it brings in a lot of, sort of toxic culture within the organization, which is not great for a startup. Typically the workforce in the startup is people who would go in a do or die attitude, right? And when there are people who are a little settled or they really don't want to move as agile, I think that is where the startups lose their superpower. The only superpower that any startup has is the agility, right? If Titanic was a small boat, it would have navigated and deviated through the iceberg very quickly, right? It was the big ship, it could not steer out. And the same happens with the bigger organizations, is they have so many processes that are already within the system that it is difficult for them to pivot. And a small startup is like that small motorboat which can navigate through the icebergs very swiftly, right? So I think if that purpose is being killed, there is practically no other benefit that a startup has. The startup cannot pay as well unless heavily funded by the VCs. The startup do not have a job security because they are still figuring out things. So I think the purpose and the agility are the two only major things that is going to kind of keep you interested, and compensation is the biggest part. I would probably sell off my personal assets to compensate somebody who is worthy in the company, because eventually we all want to make money. There is no startup that is not a business, right? We give every business a fancy name, whether that is a startup and a Sunicorn and Unicorn and whatnot. Eventually everybody is here to make money. And so should your employees be here, is to make maximum money to their maximum capacity. And if you can't produce those opportunities, then it is better to let them go out somewhere and find that opportunity for themselves. So I do feel either it moves up or it moves out. There is
Yeah,
no
we
other way.
actually highly appreciate your open-mindedness and the practical approach which you just shared. So, Vikas sir, if you could.
Yeah, so I was coming from the other side of the traditional businesses before the startup. So now here the environment is completely different. There is Alexa, songs are playing, they are eating Maggie and sometimes dancing, and most of them are half of my age. So to build have a completely different experience, because if I don't change from where we are coming, where we are used to micromanage the people, तेरे को बता दिया ना जितना करना है काम उतना ही करना है. We don't hire the talent जो अपने से ज़्यादा smart लग रहा है. फिर मेरा क्या होगा? That insecurity, the fear is there. Here, when you come from the startup perspective, then things suddenly changes because you need smart people. Otherwise, you cannot hold. So initially, it was as far as the journey is concerned. जो team रहती थी, they used to take my interview. Where's the website? Where's the company? How big is the office? And then you realize it's not going to be easy. But eventually, fortunately, I'm very passionate about building a team. At my previous business, I was from inception to 250 people team member. So I was always keen on building the team. And then in tech also, we have developers who are staying with us for more than 3 years. One of the key thing is the challenging work. So we have a concept in our organization which is happily dissatisfied. So it is mission, it is the vision, or it is the DNA, whatever name we say. So by that, it seems to be paradox. So if you are happy, how you can be dissatisfied. But if you can create an atmosphere where everyone is feeling happy, and so the most of the working hours, productive hours are in the office. And if you are not able to create an environment where people feel motivated, they are happy and they produce. And also we make them realize that we don't need to be satisfied with what we are doing. There has to be a dissatisfaction to grow, because otherwise the growth will not come. So that kind of constant communication with the team, I think that is what sometimes it is missing in most of the organization who are facing the challenges. So other than obviously what Shrijay said, the compensation, वो बातें तो अपनी जगह चाहिए ही. So because we also have an ESOP, but then how many people understand the value of ESOP? और वो भी होगा कि नहीं होगा? Startup नहीं चला तो what will happen in that case? So compensation तो आज मिल रहा है, वो तो आज ही चाहिए. So that's but then what is important here is, are you creating an environment where people feel motivated and to produce more, and is there a constant communication? Because ultimately it is the team only which is going to help. मैं कल एक interview देख रहा था Facebook का. So one of the person who was working with Mark Zuckerberg, so in 2006 when they decided to go from million user to billion user, they did not went on advertisement. The traditional mindset ये होता है कि advertisement करो और customers आएंगे. They went on hiring the best of the talent, and that's how the Facebook was built, to have a talent like that. And Facebook is perhaps one of the company who has retained the talent for so many years, the tech talent. So that mindset, that's the reason the company is so big. So ultimately it is going to be the team who is going to drive. How do we ensure that we reach and to that level? That's
Yes, sir. Now we come to the last, but I think one of the most interesting question, which relates to that startups are dynamic, they are innovative, but what they do is, by their new mindset or technology, they disrupt the whole industry. You talked about BlackBerry, or we can talk about PCOs, pagers, televisions, and mobile phones, and so on and so forth. So they disrupt the industries. So and make the lives of other industries and manufacturers or service providers tough. So how come your tech startups are making the life challenging for others in current times? So what's
I guess that's one point I guess both of them mentioned that, the major benefit of any startup is the ability to move fast. Because in bigger organizations or like legacy companies, it's always gonna take them more time, because there are a lot of more people, there's a lot of more capital and a few other things. So I guess one of the biggest advantages for us is that the incumbents in our space, they have been there for, I guess, more than 6-7 years, and a few of them even more. But they have been focused on one particular model, which is real money gaming. And that's why the other aspect of it hasn't really come up a lot. And I guess with this approach, we want to disrupt the similar industry while making some space for ourselves. And I guess that's the major thing that we want to do. We want to move fast and provide solutions that users want and not what they have been giving for the longest time.
Yes, Shrijay sir.
I think per se we are not trying to make it difficult for any other competitor. This market in its own is a tremendously big market, and everybody has a share of it, right? So I personally don't take it that way that you know for survival it is important to take away somebody else's work. The economies are growing, the user base is vast, the opportunities to expand to other countries is big. People who would want to opt or who would want to be digital first is growing, that portion of pie is growing very big. So I think that momentum in itself is very difficult to handle. And if that's still not being addressed in the full capacity, it would be a foolishness to bite into somebody else's market. Definitely we try to bring in the disruption by, obviously sticking to our core values, which is, I'll keep reiterating, is simple, affordable, transparent, accessible. That's all that we are trying to do. And if we do that beautifully, I think it is a disruption in its own, right? It is not about shifting clients from any other office. It is more about how do we spread that knowledge, that wisdom, that requirement, that urge to stay compliant. The facts are with us is single-digit percentage of people file for income tax returns in this country, right? Why do I compete for that single digit if I can enable people, or I can educate people, or I can influence people through my digital portals to come within that umbrella? And if that numbers from, let's say, 2 to 6 to becomes 12 and 20 and 25, there is a huge surge in everybody's demand. And so I think the true disruption is in creating that market at this point in time for professional services, rather than, eating into somebody else's market. The second thing is how we are creating that disruption. And pardon me if I'm a little salesy over here, but a lot of chartered accountants actually do love us, for the simple matter of fact that this is a profession that has a lot of dynamism, and not everybody is, through their own office, they are able to fulfill all the different things, right? So if we come in as an aggregator, trust me, there are so many different chartered accountants who would get services done white labeled through the portal, right? So if you are a GST practice, obviously you are not practicing IP law, or you are not registering trademarks. Nonetheless, the tendency of an Indian buyer is, I know a friend who is a chartered accountant. That is the power of this profession, right? Is everybody talks about that one friend, one uncle, one cousin, one neighbor who is a chartered accountant. Trademark karana hai na, main uncle se baat kar lunga, right? That is the trust that this profession holds, right? Nonetheless, that chartered accountant might definitely not be doing trademarks. And so either it is letting go of the business, or it is referring that forward to some other person. That is what the practice of this industry, right? We jump in where we say that you still hold that credential, sell it forward. We will make sure that we will get your back, right? And so when there is a power of collaboration, there is disruption. It is not by, in my truest sense, it is not by eating away anybody's market share. It is either by expanding the market by education and reach, or it is working collaboratively to figure out new avenues of creating revenue stream for every single stakeholder that is involved in this party or in this deal. So that is our way of looking at disruption.
Yeah, actually, we don't eat up others' meal or others' pie, But what happens is when we take a very innovative or a very agile step, what happens is we create something very beautiful which is liked by the clients and the customers. So that happens automatically. So it is in a positive way. Yeah. So sir, if you could add up.
Yeah. So, as Shrijay mentioned, zero-sum games. So it's not like that. So the whole point here is everyone can grow. So there are few services. If we look from the CA perspective, just virtual CFO. Perhaps 10 years back, it was not heard of. Maybe few of them were, but now there are many who are offering such services. So there are a few CAs who are also working with us. They on the top with our products. The kind of services they are giving, they are also giving the insights by using our platform. So I don't think so. Any disruption closes the door. So to give my example in that case, when I completed my CA, I was very clear that I will go for the business. And one person who was my neighbor, he said, उसका चौथा पांचवा attempt था, he said, यार तूने एक seat खराब कर दी. Otherwise, I would have, if you were not going into the profession, why did you did the CA? I said कि CA करने के बाद तो 10 रास्ते खुलने चाहिए, बंद नहीं होने चाहिए. So any disruption, if it happens, let us open the 10 doors which are otherwise not open. So if we look the disruption itself from that perspective, we disrupt the disruptions. So that's what I would say.
Thank you so much, sir. We have 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes for questions from the participants. If anyone would like to ask any practical aspect about the startups or anything to our panelists.
Good afternoon all. First of all, thank you for the enlightening session. Absolutely a lot of takeaways for us. So my question to you all is, especially if Mr. Shrijay or Vikas ji can answer, today we are talking about a lot of technological innovation whereby as a profession we can deliver better, we can give a better service offering because we are known for our service offerings. But one thing is also very much important. As a CA, we have certain limitations in terms of branding, promotion. So how we can use technology when we are talking about MSME? Like example, as you said, you have experience to reach to that nth mile. So when we are targeting MSMEs, how a CA can use a technology for client acquisition?
That's a very beautiful question. In all honesty, what I believe is, and I don't want to get myself in trouble, but I do feel that every professional should advertise for their services and the great work that they are doing for this country. And CAs, by all means, are the nation builders, right? Again, with those limitations, I think advertising is just a very small part of it. If you would want to gather leads or get more clients, this industry or this profession in particular is a lot more dependent on thought leadership and trust, right? And how do you build that digitally is going to be the key, right? So there are a lot of platforms, like CA Club India or Lawyers Club India, IP Leaders. We do have some guest bloggers on our websites who are chartered accountants, and they purely part knowledge, right? Profiling is the most important thing. Why would you think that, some professionals, may that be chartered accountants or may that be any other industry, they are perceived to be thought leaders, right? If you meet a scientist, if you have heard that scientist's name in 5 different major publications, you would probably say, yaar, rocket to pehla inhone hi banaya tha. That might not be the case, that may be the case, but it is also a perception game, right? Is how people perceive that thought leadership. And for that, I think digital platforms are extremely important, right? It gives you a reach. It gives you an ability to part your knowledge to the right kind of audience. A little bit of understanding about how the social media works and how the technicalities of your CA knowledge works the combination of that can bring you to an unlimited audience, right? When people, a great example of that is a good friend of mine and a chartered accountant from Surat went extremely viral, uh, right? When there was an open letter that was sent to Shri Narendra Modi some years back, right? And that's not because that was an advertisement. It was because it was a genuine expression of some concern or worry that as a fraternity participant or member, he wanted to express, right? And that got him a lot of fame and recognition and name in the startup market. So I think it is a combination of persistence, right set of content being parted, which is very targeted to your right set of audience. So let's say if you practice only with factories and Factories Act, right? Then your content should be around that. It should solve the problems which are generally persistent in that market. And let's say if you randomly write about digital marketeers, and then write about factories, and then write about printing presses, and then write about something else, that will only scatter. So in our marketing world, there is a very interesting saying is, you never thin spread your dime, right? If you have 1 rupee to spend, you don't invest 1 rupee into 1,000 different mutual funds, right? You try to kind of concentrate that effort where you can make the biggest bang, right? So first of all, you find your niche, right? This is exactly what I want to progress my practice in this particular niche, right? Then start developing content around that niche and try and help out people understand that better, right? Try to talk about nuances. If there are any major judgments that have come out, be vocal about it. The only thing which is a problem is social media is a game of persistence. And so if you do it today, you don't do it for a month, then you do it again, then you don't do it for a month, nobody is going to remember you, right? Marketing is about impressions. So why would we all know that Jade Blue is one of the better clothing brands in Ahmedabad, right? And why would we not know about somebody else in comparison? Is because every time I come from my home to my office, I see at least 3 hoardings, right? It is a power of recall. And so if you are persistent at it, and if your audience is having that recall time and again, they will start liking your content. Once they start liking your content, they'll start sharing your content. And so your popularity goes beyond your first degree of connections to the second degree of connection, third degree of connection. Eventually what is said is every person in this world is somehow connected on the 6th degree. If I would want to meet Mark Zuckerberg, at least the 6th friend of friend will be a close friend to Mark Zuckerberg, right? And so if you are persistent on kind of expanding your reach, I think nobody really needs an advertisement. Is at least.
Thank you very much, Shrijay. It was really interesting. Thank you.
The importance of the team building and the sustaining the team members is discussed already. I want to know the golden rule or the thumb rule when you hire someone and when you retain someone. Because when we see in the CA practices, normally it is the perception that the people come, they learn and they go. And this is not the small size but mid-size CA firms also facing the same issues. So what can we do the different to retain, and as you say, some challenging task or something should be there for them to continue with us. So take away.
So what I've seen is sometimes we are paying to, let's take an example of stipend. So how much we are paying as a stipend? I think it has been increased to 4,000 rupees, right, recently. So how do you expect if you pay this kind of money, maybe 10, 15,000 rupees to stay with you, That is number one. I'm not talking about specifically one.
I am asking other than stipend. I'm not
No, no.
asking for the
So,
articleship
yeah,
period.
yeah.
I'm
So I'm
talking
coming
about
to
the paid
that.
employee
So I'm
things.
coming to that. So the whole idea is most of the organization, if you look at CA organizations, I'm not specifically pointing out at anyone, but I've seen 15,000 rupees, 16,000 rupees, that kind of salary is being offered. So obviously the article is or the employee is there to learn at that price, at that value, because it is probably an office boy is also earning to that range. So that is one thing I feel that if we don't pay them enough, which Shrijay also highlighted, so all the other things together and the pay, it has to be a combination of that. And second important thing I feel, if we can align the incentives, see how the multinational companies works or any larger organization, if someone is headquartered in UK and then the team is still working at late at night here, how does this happen? So this happens because the incentives are aligned. So if we can align the incentives of the team in a way that they work and they grow with along with that, that is, I feel, the key to handle it.
I think I do agree with that, and apart from that, I think one thing that I have understood is, very simple thing is, badi machli chote talab mein nahi tairti, right? So rather than how do we keep them here, if we expand our horizons, if we scale, people will anyways feel good about staying here, right? And I think that is a very important thing. Is with a lot of conventional practices, what I have seen is probably because they're structured more in a practice way than a corporate way. At some point in time, they become complacent, right? They're like, okay, this is the scale that I am happy with, and I want to stay at this scale. Your Adanis and Ambanis will never be able to talk about that, because the moment they talk about stagnation, their stock prices are going to crash, right? And that is the pressure for scaling. That pressure is not with the professionals, right? Because professionals think that this is my practice, and I'm also part of it. I also felt the same way when I was doing consulting work, right? Is अच्छा कमाता हूँ, घर लेके जाता हूँ, साल में 2 बार फॉरेन ट्रिप करता हूँ, मजा आता है. This is my happy world, right? When that happens, my happy world does not equate to my employees' happy world, because then I will always be a 15 people company, right? And when I'm always a 15 people company, then that person cannot grow from a 15,000 to a 15 lakh rupees worth of salary, right? But if I become from 15 people company to 500 people company, there is enough room for everybody to grow within those boundaries. So I think if you were to retain the top talent, the talent will need that bigger playground every year. If your playground is this much this year, it has to grow in proportion, right? You have to match the inflation. अगर तेल का दाम 10% बढ़ रहा है, तो salary 10% तो बढ़नी ही चाहिए, right? If that doesn't happen, then obviously there is something. Then the real value of money is actually deteriorating. So I think the hunger for scale is the most important thing for practices when it is about the mindset, and why a lot of practices now have started thinking in a more corporate-ish way, and having the deadlines, having the sales targets, having the retention targets, is only because when the practice is scaling, everybody will have an opportunity inevitably to scale. If the practice is stagnant, then it is very difficult to kind of retain a big talent into a small cage. So I think it will eventually be the hunger to scale.
So it's one just point to give my example. 3 years back, it was difficult to convince a tech guy to come for an interview in our office. On an average, daily I am getting 10 emails for the job through my portal. So it's a matter of time. Once everyone is aware that this is the organization where the team is so happy, they are enjoy working, that word of mouth will spread, And that will perhaps, the question which you are asking will.
I have one question to ask. Majority of us are practicing chartered accountants here, so we can also be called entrepreneurs. So initially, when we are starting a practice, then we can manage the whole work like marketing or doing the actual work and everything. When we grow up, there comes a stage that we must delegate the work. So I want to know about the startups. Which areas should we dedicate, like marketing or actual implementation? Because we are into industries where involvement of ourselves are important in some of the clients or some type of works. So practically, in my case, I find it difficult to decide which work should I delegate to my staff and which should not. So I just want to know about your experiences, that what you did in the past when you started growing.
I don't think so it's a copy paste model for everyone, but what I feel is you as an entrepreneur or a founder, you need to know what things you are good at. So let's say if you're really good at selling, or let's say you're really good at marketing, then you keep those closer to you, and you have to understand that the skill set that you don't have, and that's what you have to hire for. And I guess that's very important, because what happens is once you start, like when you start, you are doing pretty much everything on your own, but it's very difficult to let go sometimes. कि मैं कैसे भरोसा कर लूँ, whatever the reason might be, but it's very important to understand what you are good at and keep it closer to you, but also identifying what you're not good at, and that's where you have to delegate.
I think my definition of delegation is try to delegate everything, and it is actually possible. I had a major reservation, and I was extremely picky about how things should work, and it actually hampered a lot of our growth. The biggest thing that I've learned working with larger leaders in the industry is they have a lot of free time. Because if you do not have free time, you are not thinking about what next move do you want to take, right? So try and delegate everything and let there be mistakes, and back your employees' mistakes. Uh, there might be losses for that, but if you have not delegated things forward, then one, you are not intellectually empowering them to get things done. The second thing is you are so occupied yourself in the weeds of managing day-to-day client errands that you will never be able to think about what next big move that I want to make for my company, right? And I've personally been victim of that limitation for many years for LegalWiz. I mean, if I were to start LegalWiz again, I think it will be very different than what I started as, because in my early days I still had that employee mindset, because I was an employee for the longest period of time, that I have to get work done. Now if 7 years down the line, when I think about and some senior employees within the company has changed my mindset like that. We hired somebody from KPMG a couple of years back, and in the interview he told that I'm not going to work, I'm going to get work done. I'm like, that is such a powerful statement for somebody to tell in the interview. I'm like, તમારે કામ કરાવવું છે કે તમારે કામ થયેલું જોઈએ છે? That was a very literal statement that he asked me in his interview, and I was like, કામ થયેલું જોઈએ છે. It was like, count on me, I'll get it done. I might not necessarily do it myself, but if you empower me, it will be better for you. And I think that has been one sort of shift in mindset that I've had in last couple of years. And if I truly, genuinely, in all honesty, if I were to do LegalWiz again, I would do it very differently that way.
I would give one liner just. So there's a thumb rule also in this. It is 70-30 formula. Any work which your person under you can work with 70% of the efficiency, it should be delegated. The control should be there. So simple formula to identify one aspect. If they are doing at 70% efficiency, delegate it.
So thank you, sir. Proximity of time. I'm just taking the last question, so please, and any one of you can answer to him.
It was in fact a wonderful session. Just wanted to have your inputs in terms of, as we told that 6% or the single digit return filers are there. If we wanted to segment the rest of the people, what would be the strategies? We know that our product is, I can say, scalable. To reach to the such kind of people who are not having such tech base or something like this, I need your inputs into that, how we can scale up for such people.
So there is one which is a mandatory requirement for filing. And then there are 1,000 other reasons why one should file a return, right? Have you ever seen an employee who is struggling with getting a home loan? I've seen most of them. And that is because in their early careers when they were earning 15,000, 20,000 a month, they chose not to file a return because they were like, I'm not getting a refund, why am I filing a return, right? What is missing out here is they did not build a history with an ITR department that they can go to the bank and submit that I've been earning so much every single year as a salaried income and this is what my track record is, right? So that is one good reason. Now, if I were to go out and educate a class of people who are in that salaried 15, 20, 30, 40,000 rupee range and not filing a return, I would say that at some point in time you will have kids, you will want to buy a house, you want to buy a car, get a home loan, right? This is the time that you build a reputation for yourself. The bank will trust you at that point in time. You can't build reputation over time, right? So that is one way to go about it. The second way, obviously, if the companies who are not filing returns or the organization and they have losses, they cannot carry forward the losses, right? So that is another good way to educate people. Now, not a lot of people know that. In fact, I did not know that in very early days of my journey, not with Legal Ways, but before that. And I personally did not set off certain losses, right? And now, kind of in the hindsight, I'm like, what big of a fool that I am, not filing a return for that. So it is not only about people's willingness to do it, it is more about people don't know what are the consequences, either good or bad if they do it. So that is the first thing. The second thing is, again, going back to the same principles, make it simple and accessible, right? It does not take 1 full hour of your time, even not that much, to file a return. A lot of things are auto-fetch. There are popular platforms available. You can practically file within 5 to 10 minutes if it is a simple return, right? People have a perception about complexity. It is not actually complex. And so if there is right set of education that is given, that it is not complex, it is not time consuming, it is very easy and it is not costing you, a bomb, then people would want to do it for good reasons. And so I think that education needs to happen through popular platforms. People of the fraternity come out and be vocal about these things, right? The only crime that wise people can make in this world is when they are not vocal about their wisdom. That is an absolute waste of wisdom, right? So if we are vocal about our wisdom, then people will perhaps learn something, and if not 12%, maybe it will go to 6.5, right? But that in a 140 crore people country, that's still a lot of incremental value in absolute terms, right? It can create one more ICAI body to manage that volume. So I think that is well worth it.
On behalf of Ahmedabad branch of WIRC of ICAI, it's my privilege to deliver the vote of thanks with deepest gratitude to Mr. Shah, Mr.Shrijay Sheth and Vikas Mundhra ji. I think you all spoke wholeheartedly from your practical experiences from the startups which you have seen the challenges and the rewards which you have fetched by your nice thinking and innovative thinking, I should say. So big round of applause for our 3 panelists who spoke their heart out and shared their practical experiences. We would like to welcome you in future as well on the platform of Ahmedabad branch. So thank you so much once again.